Hi, my name is Jeremy. I'm here in the Guildhall Museum and I'm reaching out to you while you're out there until the time you can come and visit us again. Now this video is about a subject I get asked about a lot. It's called All About Rochester. Now, even I can't tell you all about Rochester in 10 minutes, so I'm going to do the same thing. 3 objects plus one really interesting bonus object to try to give you what you need to know about how we get the Rochester you come and see if you visit it today. Okay. The brilliant thing about Rochester is it's exactly like loads of other places in England. Hang on. That didn't quite come out right, did it? I'll try that again. The brilliant thing about Rochester is it follows a pattern that's very like lots of other English towns and cities. A pattern of growing and changing. And that's because of the people who brought it about. So first of all, we need to go right back to the beginning. We need to talk about the Romans. Now what I've got here is a replica. So this is not really 2,000 years old, but it looks like and it feels like a Roman sword or gladius. It's a copy. But it reminds us of how important the Roman soldiers were. Actually, not just because of the fighting. It's what happened after the fighting that's really important for the history of Rochester. You see, after the Romans invaded Kent in 43 AD, when the fighting was over, they started on their next job, and their next job was to get Britain ready for the Roman Empire. Because the Roman Empire had to work in certain ways. And for those things to work, the army needed to get Britain ready. It needed to build things. It needed to make towns. And the towns needed to be linked with roads. Now, we all know about the Romans building lots of roads. But what they probably did is they used the roads that were already there and just made them better. Now, where we are here in Rochester, we're right on top of one of the most important, one of the oldest roads in the whole of the UK. If you look on a map of Kent, you can find it. It's called the A2. Sometimes we call it Watling Street, and here it's called Rochester High Street. It was probably there before the Romans came, because for years and years, thousands of years, it had been the way into and the way out of Britain. The Romans improved it. They used a drain to take the water away, and they used gravel and stones to make it more usable. And this is the road that came along here through where Rochester is today. When it gets to this point, there's a bit of a problem, a bit of a wet problem, because there's a huge river stopping the road getting all the way up to the place that we now call London. Now, in prehistoric times, people probably got across the river by a boat, but that wasn't good enough for the Roman army. So at some point during Roman Britain, the Roman army built a bridge here. And having improved the road and built the bridge, they wanted to keep all that safe, so they built a wall as well. And there you have the 3 big ingredients of the Roman town: a road, a bridge, and a wall. And of course they gave it a name. And we know what the name was. This town was called Duro Brevi, which in English means the fortified place, the strong place by the bridge, which just about tells you all you need to know about the Roman town that was here. Now, in about 400, these Roman soldiers went home. They went back to Rome because Rome was attacked and needed help. Somebody else came along and decided to take charge of the old Roman Britain instead. And these people were the people we call the Anglo-Saxons. And we know they were here because when they came to Kent, lived in Kent, and died in Kent, their bodies were buried with some of their possessions. Possessions like this. Now this, you can see, is not a replica. This is about 1,500 years old. It's an Anglo-Saxon sword, or to give it its proper name, a scramasax. We know it must be Anglo-Saxon because it's the special shape that was used by the first Anglo-Saxons when they came to live here. One side is thick and heavy, one side only was sharp. It's single-sided. Now you can see that single-sided blade has gone very rusty and crumbled away because it spent more than 1,000 years lying in the ground. It's the Anglo-Saxons that took away the name Duro-Brevi and called this place Rochester. Because whenever they came across a place that was obviously an old Roman town, big wall, bridge, well-made road, they called it a casta, because that was their version of the Latin castrum. Or sometimes casta got changed to Chester or Chester, which is why when you look at a map of England, all over the place, you can see lots and lots of towns ending in Chester. All those places are Roman towns which were taken over by the Anglo-Saxons and given a new name. Now, Anglo-Saxon England comes to an end in a very famous date, 1066, when the Normans invade England. Their leader was called William. William, who came from Normandy, he had a plan, and it was in two parts. Part one was to make himself King of England. Now, you might think that was hard enough, but actually, that was the easy bit. That only really took a day. Battle of Hastings, killed the English king, killed most of the important people in this part of England, made himself king on Christmas Day, 1066. Part two was more difficult. Part two was to keep himself king, because he was worried that the English would get another army together and be stronger, fight him again and throw him out. But they never did. And the reason why they never did is here in Rochester. Castles. Castles are not just buildings, they're an idea. They're a way of organising soldiers. So what William did is he got all his knights together and rewarded them with parts of England. And all the knights spread out and went to live in these new parts of England that now belong to them. And they put castles there to keep themselves safe from the English who hated them. So that's why today, almost wherever you go around England, you can find old Norman castles, just like in Rochester. So we've got Romans, Anglo-Saxons, and Normans building the wall, the road, and the bridge, giving it an English name, building a castle and cathedral. I'm going to quickly squeeze in my bonus object, because this is just about one of the most surprising things we have in the museum. You wouldn't think this was anything very important at all. It's made of clay. It's got tiny holes in it, and it's broken. This is the one object that gives us a chance to look through the Romans, past their town, past beyond Duro-Brevi, to what was there before. Because this is a mould for making coins. A mould from the Iron Age. This is the only clue that tells us that before the Romans built their town, there was somebody here already. There was somebody here making coins. And you don't do that if you're just living on a small farm. There's a proper group of houses, people in charge, making coins, maybe for a king. I'll see you soon.